and I am joining you today live. And I'm going to the gym, and I just wanted to cover some of the latest updates and teach you a little bit about the rules of evidence and how there is, in fact, direct and circumstantial evidence of an organized insurrection and communist takeover of the city of Los Angeles and ultimately the state of California. And I'm going to wait here to see if anybody joins me. I know I noticed my live a little bit later in the day, but I had a busy day yesterday. It was my son's first judo tournament, and unfortunately, he only took second, but he had the bravery to get out there and do it. Hey, what's going on, brother? FPV Frodo, can you hear me? Do I have comms? Give me some 5x5s, and then I'll get moving. Yeah, that's right. California is reaping what it has sown. Just throw me a 5x5 so I know you can hear me. Okay, outstanding. All right, and let your friends know I'm live if you can. Tell everybody that you can about this. So I am attorney Michael Ehline. I've been a California attorney for a little over 20 years. As you know, I'm not a big believer in the police state. However, I am a believer in national sovereignty. And when I see foreigners, many of them illegal aliens, waving a foreign flag and attacking my fellow Americans, irrespective of whether or not they're police or not, I'm an American first. And I'm also an inactive United States Marine. And I took an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. And what we have seen in the last 4 years up until the re-election of President Trump is a concerted effort by the far left using taxpayer-funded non-governmental organizations to flood our country with at least 20 million illegal aliens. We know that the state of California has at least an additional 5 seats, Democrat seats, as a result of the census redistricting California from a very conservative red state to a blue state. And so without illegal aliens even needing to vote, we know that has been the game plan in California. So in the way they do it is they call it a sanctuary state. They offer free health care, free taxpayer-funded benefits to illegal aliens and offer them what's called sanctuary from ICE, for example. They refuse to cooperate with immigration and customs enforcement to get these illegals out of our country. And in exchange, when the U.S. Census comes along, the illegal aliens are counted in the populace count. And what that does is it helps Democrats because this only happens in sanctuary cities, and sanctuary states pick up seats. And we know that, in particular, many of the people that have flooded into our country come from communist countries who hate America and who hate the concept of a Bill of Rights or a Constitution. They operate under the auspices of Roman civil law. And under Roman civil law, all rights come from the state. And they come from cultures where bribery and lying and despotism by the state is normal. So to them, if they come up here and they're given free health care, free hotels, free cell phones, they're thinking, hey, this is a good deal for me. And we know now that the Biden administration was giving out thousands and thousands of social security numbers illegally to illegal aliens. I know from having done workers' compensation law that illegal aliens typically use phony social security numbers. Many of them will use the same social security number, and they'll often claim like 99 dependents, right? So they don't have to pay taxes. So when I heard Gavin Newsom saying that they pay their taxes, I was cracking up because they don't. And if you try to do something to them, they just go back across the border or use a different last name and start the game over again. So the idea behind the globalist movement, starting with the World Economic Forum and prior to that, the United Nations Project, I think it was Project 20-something, somebody correct me in the sidebar, it was to create a one world globalist government. And how do you do that? You get people with very low IQs from third world countries like Haiti, for example, or sub-Saharan Africa to flood into your country like they've done in France and like they've done in the United Kingdom, like they've done in Italy, like they're doing all over Europe, to break down the cultural value system of the natives, like they're doing in Ireland, and by offering them free stuff. And then what you do is you pass hate speech laws against the locals, against the natives, so they're not allowed to talk about it or speak against it. And we know now that the very same thing was happening when anybody talked about the Hunter Biden laptop, or anybody talked, even a scientist who disagreed with the official government Fauci explanation or science behind the so-called vaccines, they were automatically censored. They had their YouTube accounts abolished. So that would be an indirect evidence of the globalist takeover. Now, many of you say, but why would globalists support a communist takeover since they're billionaires? So why would they care? Well, because we know that the masses can be controlled with free cell phones, with free universal basic income. So we know that if you can take away the American dream and destroy the middle class, you'll have an upper class, just like they had in the Soviet Union, the proletariat, and then you'll have the serfs, basically the same thing they had in the Soviet Union. And so that's the goal. So at least, so I'm going to try to be as neutral as I can here, but that's really what the goal is. Now, the goal of worldwide communism is the destruction of the American way of life and the concept that your rights come from a creator. Now, what separated the United States from all other countries is that we were a natural law republic, that all of our rights came from a creator, and because of that, they could not be taken away by the state. And we know that communists are atheists, and they hate the idea of God. They support the concept of, well, the modern communists, at least in the United States, support the concept of no legal age, the transhumanism, right? So chopping off body parts of children and things of that nature. So that's sort of what the goal is to basically destroy the morality of society, hatred of God, and pushing a Luciferian agenda upon the populace. And if you disagree, you'll be censored, you'll have your social media accounts eliminated, because they have to create a false sense of majority. So bringing that fast forward, towards the end of the Biden administration, again, tax-funded non-governmental organizations, including Catholic Charities and the Red Cross, we know that from the very start, one of the very first executive orders that Joe Biden passed was to eliminate Donald Trump's executive order of shelter in place. So under Donald Trump, we had the least border crossings of any administration in history under the first administration. And he basically said, you need to go to the embassy where you are sheltered and seek permission to come in. And then we'll look at your background. We'll do a background check. We'll make sure that you're not going to be an enemy of the Republic. You're not going to come here to cause problems for us. And then we'll decide whether or not we want to give you some kind of amnesty to let you come in under temporary protective status. Well, what Biden did is he eliminated that executive order and opened all of our southern borders up. He was even flying illegal aliens in the middle of the night on airplanes, and also flooding the country with undocumented illegal alien children that were unaccompanied by parents. And we know that there's at least 500,000 minors who are unaccounted for. We also know that in order to come across, that the Mexican drug cartels, they get money around $10,000 to $20,000 per person that they bring across. So that's sort of, in a nutshell, what was going on. And so we know that that was being done because we knew that they would go to sanctuary cities, because they're automatically granted by Newsom, for example, free healthcare, free everything at taxpayer expense. And then what happens is at the next census count, the Democrats pick up about 10 to 20 new seats, which will make the entire country a single-party blue state. The problem is that with the election of Donald Trump, that sort of threw a wrench into it for them. And so his goal, obviously, is to get rid of all these illegal aliens, because he understands that if he doesn't, there will always be a single party state in this country, a single party state that is very alliance oriented with other totalitarian countries like China, like communist China. We know that Hillary Clinton and a lot of big time, well, Republicans and Democrats get a ton of money from the communist Chinese. And so we know that that is the ultimate goal. So under Biden, we know that at least 50,000 military-aged communist Chinese were able to walk across our borders. Some of them were recently just caught with a form of bacteria that can destroy all of our crops. But we know that primarily they go into sanctuary cities like Los Angeles. And so that's where we're at now. And we know that ultimately, because children tend to follow the tutelage of their parents, and you can see that with certain population groups in this country. If children come from a family that has a lot of criminals and don't have basic civility, the children act the same way as their single moms, for example, while the dads are in prison. And so we know that children follow the examples of their public school teachers and their parents. Well, we know that the National Education Association and the California Teachers Association, for lack of a better word, are basically communist Marxists. And they've been pushing this critical race theory agenda, which basically teaches that white people, especially white males, are the enemy, and that the natives, the people that have been here for hundreds of years, are the enemy, and that we're colonials or whatever you colonizers, whatever. It's basically just an anti-American philosophy pushed by the Confucian societies on our college campuses, in particular at Harvard and Yale and most of the college campuses in Los Angeles. And we know that the schools get money directly and indirectly from communist China as well as Russia. And a lot of this stuff started under the KGB and was ultimately taken over by the communist Chinese. And so we know that the communist Chinese are behind pushing the anti-white racist agenda, and they've been very good at it. And they also fund organizations, along with people like Soros organizations, like Antifa, and these other communist organizations. So what's happened now is it's reached a boiling point. The president is trying to remove these illegal aliens prior to the next U.S. census, because he knows that that'll be the end of the republic, because communism will never ever work in tandem with a laissez-faire capitalist system that promotes a merit-based society. And I'm not talking about the crony capitalism that's being pushed in the United States presently. I'm talking about true capitalism, where you have a merit-based society with very low taxes, possibly going back to the original tariff-based system and abolishing the communistic-style 16th Amendment an income tax system which punishes people based upon their success. And so what we have to do now is look at the evidence. Well, the evidence will show that the communists, the modern day Democrat Party, Marxists, are pushing this agenda, and it now has reached a loggerhead. So we have Mayor Susan Bass, a known communist who made illegal visits to Cuba when it was a crime to go there, and working in a conspiracy against the United States government. Now, she has become elected because, again, the offspring of the illegals and the Antifa types and the anti-white pro-Mexico organizations that control many of the political districts, the congressional districts within LA, are aligned with the Marxists and the communists. And so because of that, we also have a situation much like the IRA back during the time of the Troubles, if you guys understand what happened to Ireland. So in Ireland, you had the North and the South. The Protestants call it Ulster, the Catholics call it Belfast, but it's Northern Ireland. And so Prince William, the Earl of Orange, the Protestant group, worked against the Catholics to take Northern Ireland. And once Northern Ireland was taken on behalf of the king, what happened was you still had police constables. Some of them were loyal to the Catholics, some of them were loyal to the Protestants. And why am I telling you this? Well, because we probably have at least half of the LAPD, which is more aligned with the return California back to Mexico group, right? And then you have the other half who live in maybe Simi Valley, who are more aligned to the Republic, the people who support the United States of America and the Constitutional Republic. So we have basically a revolution within the LAPD itself. And there actually is a division. I guess akin to if you were in the Marine Corps, if you're in the infantry, you're going to think the air wing are not as good as you. If you're in the infantry, you're going to think the infantry's better. If you're in the air wing, you think you're better, and you're going to be vying for funds and power. It's not the best explanation, but it's the best one that I can give you right now. Hit that like and subscribe button. Good seeing you, Rami. Good seeing you, Robert. Love having you. Love having you guys on my show. So unfortunately, a lot of you guys watch the Marxist-run news media, and you've fallen into this concept that ICE is bad and they're evil, and we need to not use ICE to get these illegals out of the country. Well, these people are in the country illegally, and many of them are a danger to the Republic, as evidenced by these people waving American flags, destroying property. But somehow it's Donald Trump's fault, which to me is absurd. But it reminds me of the same people who push critical race theory. It's your fault because you're white that I'm murdering and robbing and stealing from you and your family and robbing stores because you're a racist, bigot, and a homophobe. And therefore, I get to be violent and destroy the country. It's all your fault, whitey. And so that's a very similar concept to what's being pushed by the press, that somehow it's the president's fault that foreign nationals and illegal aliens are destroying the city of Los Angeles. And if you look at the circumstantial evidence, what you'll see right now, for example, Mayor Susan Bass has already said, in effect, we have brigades who monitor ICE raids and with their social media warn people in advance. And in essence, they're meeting these people with firework mortars, with different types of devices and explosives and Molotov cocktails, and they're throwing stuff at them. George Soros-funded organizations say many are bringing in pallets of bricks, and they're staging these pallets of bricks in front of wherever there might be an ICE raid. So these so-called protesters, who are really just insurrectionists, will show up and break off little pieces of the bricks and throw them at these people who are in essence trying to get illegal alien people out of our country who are not supposed to be here under our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. But the news media has couched it as though these are just innocent people. They should have every right to be here. And if you don't support them, you're a racist, bigot, and a homophobe. Well, this is called cultural Marxism. And they tried critical theory in the past. People like Obama and Eric Holder, who was also a terrorist. He tried to take over and held people hostage with the Weather Underground. You can look it up. I believe it was at Harvard or Yale. And so really it started moving it fast forward with Obama and his globalist friends. And so now what we have is a situation where the city of Los Angeles is generationally anti-American. And because of that, they think that returning us to Mexico is somehow going to make America better or make things fairer. I honestly don't think that it would, but maybe you might. But in essence, that is the circumstantial evidence and direct evidence will show that what's going on here is a staged and highly organized insurrection against the Republic of the United States. And the goal of these insurrectionists is to provoke ICE to kill people. Because if they can do that, they think they can turn public opinion against the Trump administration and against the Republic. And so that is why these people are standing in front of cars and they're becoming extremely violent and trying to kill ICE agents. Because they know that if they do, and at least one of these illegal aliens gets killed, they'll be able to use their paid propaganda at CNN, PMSNBC, and the other Marxist-run news agencies, as well as because they have total control of the public education system in California, that will be the impetus that continues what I consider to be the second Revolutionary War, a war against illegal alien invaders against the Republic. And in essence, so by the way, guys, I'm going to be going to the gym here in a second. So at the end of the day, people can engage in ad hominem remarks all they want, but the evidence will show that that is precisely what is happening. It is a communist, Marxist, anti-American sedition takeover of one of our major cities by the Marxist communists, funded by non-governmental organizations with your tax dollars. And towards the end of the Biden administration, President Otto Penn gave billions of dollars to these non-governmental organizations. And in one of my future shows, I'm going to show you how these tax-funded non-governmental organizations are funding these riots with your money to create a radical, violent revolution. And the effort is going to be for California to secede from the Union. And I think that it could backfire. It very well could backfire on them, because most of California is actually red. So if there is an open effort to secede from the Union, probably the only parts of California that will be able to secede would be the city of Los Angeles. And the other cities that are pro-USA, pro-America, that don't support communism, will then seek to also secede and join the actual union that pledges allegiance to the flag. And so I don't care what political party you're on. This is just based upon my understanding of the law as an attorney, that the circumstantial evidence, reasonable deductions can be drawn from what's happening and who's funding this. In particular, look at Susan Bass and look at Gavin Newsom. The reservoirs were empty, and all of a sudden a fire starts. And of course, the mayor, Susan Bass, I guess she's over in Africa enjoying a vacation when all this goes down. And to this day, she's trying to make it impossible for people to get copies of her text messages. But we know that the stated goal of the communists that she is part of is to destroy the republic. So it makes sense, based upon the circumstantial evidence, that this is an organized communist Marxist takeover of our country. And the goal is to couch it as though Donald Trump somehow, by arresting and removing illegal aliens, is the reason why these people are violent, destroying property and burning down the country. And because they own lock, stock, and barrel most of the news media, they may very well be able to convince the vast majority of Americans who are not critical thinkers, who went to left-wing run public schools, that that is exactly what's happening. So let me just take a look. Matthew West, good seeing you, brother. And let me see. Rami, yeah, you're right. They are cesspools. Rami says it's always the big cities that are cesspools. They're the problem. And Ann Pisano, I appreciate you joining me. Yeah, it is a phone mount, so it kind of moves around. Hopefully you can see me a little better. God, I can't wait till tomorrow, because I keep getting better looking every day. Now, guys, help me find Tiffany Bagley, by the way. She disappeared on me. I'm hoping that she's okay. She was one of my best members. Well, thank you. This is a public service. He did compete, but he took second place. It was his very first tournament in judo, and he's pretty devastated about it. And he wanted to give up, but I had to explain to him that the way you become a hero isn't by winning every battle. The way you become a hero is by not giving up and continuing to fight. And so I'm trying to teach him meritorious-based values. You don't get a trophy for second place, but you certainly don't get looked down upon for trying. So thank you so much. This is a public service. And Kurt Bronson, good seeing you. But in essence, that is what is going on based upon... Thank you, Mary. I've been told that by other ladies too. My dad had much more beautiful blue eyes than me. Being a Swedish American, it's one of the cool things that I have is the beautiful blue eyes, but I appreciate that. So let's see here. Well, Sam Rogers, I don't know. My thought about Elon is that he was always a sleeper cell. He's part of the World Economic Forum. The CEO of X is a radical pro-World Economic Forum, a transhumanist. We know that J.D. Vance is also a transhumanist. We know that he's part of that whole PayPal crew, part of the board, I guess. So I think they just are trying to replace Trump with J.D. Vance because he's one of theirs. And I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm a libertarian, but I do support many of the things that Trump supports, in particular, removing illegal alien insurrectionists from our country. They don't belong here. Now, I think being a libertarian, I would love to have open borders, but the problem is as long as the government offers them free everything and free health care and this and that, it's a magnet for them to keep coming. And we know that they use fake social security numbers. We know they use alias names. We know that most of them aren't paying income taxes. They'll claim, again, 99 dependents. They'll use a fake social security number. They'll use a fake name. When they get caught, they'll move on to the next one. I know this from having practiced workers' compensation law. In California, you're not even allowed to ask them about their immigration status in a workers' compensation case. So think about it. They're protected. They're a protected class. So let me see here. Now, Gavin Newsom, as far as I'm concerned, appears to be an insurrectionist. And if this was any other time in our history where we didn't have so many illegals and Marxists in control of the government, he would already be in prison for treason. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. So based upon the direct and circumstantial evidence, I would say there's a 99% chance that this is an organized insurrection and it's being funded by your tax dollars using the non-governmental organizations that the Biden administration funded towards the end of his tenure in office. Now, the interesting thing is now we're finding out that Joe Biden was obviously suffering from dementia and probably had cancer the whole time. I could tell right away when he ran that he had dementia, having done so many elder abuse cases. And so we're also learning that it appears as though Liz Warren actually was one of his auto pen signatories. So we know that people within his organization were signing executive orders with his auto pen. Most people who are somewhat intelligent recognize that Joe Biden used to be a very patriotic guy. He was pro-American. And I thought he was a good guy. I used to be a Democrat. So my thought is that Joe Biden probably didn't even know what was going on. I believe that all of these executive orders, including opening the southern border to over 20 million illegal alien invaders, many of them enemies of the Republic, with a stated goal of destroying America, were allowed to walk right in, given free cell phones, free hotels, free educations, free health care in sanctuary cities. And now Trump's goal is to get them out before the next U.S. Census. Because if we don't, the Democrat Party will pick up, it is estimated, a minimum of 10 new seats and a maximum of 20 or more seats, which will make the United States another version of California. It will never, ever have a chance to be red again. And so that is what the war is about. And it is a war. And for any of you who actually believe that these so-called protesters are mostly peaceful, I guess I'm never going to be able to convince you of anything. But in the meantime, let's see here. So Right Stuff says, by design, his dementia was told what to do. Yeah, he wasn't I'm pretty sure he wasn't making the decisions. I'm pretty sure that probably Liz Warren and these other anti-American senators and people in his administration, at the behest of Barack Obama, were the ones behind these executive orders. Remember, Barack Obama is a follower of Saul Alinsky in the Cloward-Piven strategy, which is to overwhelm our social services systems and overwhelm our emergency management systems to basically crash our economy and force us into a one-world government like the European Union. And that is their stated goal. So all of these people from Barack Obama, Liz Warren, Bernie Sanders, all these guys, well, why aren't they concerned about it? Because they've got the power. They're the ones who are putting the 5G towers right next to your house, right next to kindergartners, and telling you need to take these safe and effective things, and putting graphene into your body and things like that. And we know, again, that even Elon Musk, many people say that he is part of it, that he is part of the globalist one world government system, and that was all a big ruse to try and get J.D. Vance put into power. So I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm going to go train. I'm going to go work out. But again, just based on my experience as an attorney of over 20 years, I would say it's 99% certain that this is a organized insurrection, eclipsing anything that the left-wing press said about January 6th. And remember, guys, on January 6th, Donald Trump did ask for the National Guard to come, and we know that Nancy Pelosi told them not to come. And we know that all of Donald Trump's tweets and everything that he said about remaining peaceful were deleted by the left-wing run social media sites to make it look like an insurrection. But this is a real insurrection where we have foreigners waving foreign flags trying to destroy our cities and our country. And we see that the press is saying that it's mostly peaceful. So if you look at the biases, I think you can understand that this is an organized insurrection designed to overthrow the United States of America. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. Now, guys, join me later. And I know a lot of nice Muslim families too, Rami. The problem is that they never seem to fight against the radical Muslims or say anything bad about them. And we know that when they get enough population, they do what they did to the United Kingdom and what they've done to France, which is destroy it. And if you don't go along with it, they destroy you. So I wish that there were some peaceful Muslims that would fight back against the jihadi style control that they're exerting in France and the United Kingdom. But so far, I'm not seeing that. I'm hoping and praying that that can happen because I'm aligned in many ways to the masculine values of Islam. I think that the concept of a man supporting his wife and kids is absolutely aligned with my Viking values. The difference is, of course, is that in my culture, that your wife is your shield maiden, and she also picks up arms and fights beside you. She doesn't wear a hefty bag over her head and act submissive. In fact, she's part of the tribe, and she can also be a chieftain. So that's just a little bit difference between my value system and theirs. But I do appreciate it, Sam Rogers. And yeah, Robert says peaceful protesters. They're not protesters, they're insurrectionists. But I appreciate your personal point of view that they're peaceful. Unfortunately, these so-called mostly peaceful protesters leave trillions of dollars in property damage in their wake. So in any event, guys, join me later at 16:30 hours Pacific. We're going to go over some body cam footage with BZ Watchdog and Ryan, the whistleblower cop, and talk about BZ Watchdog's false arrest. And so I'll do my legal breakdown on the laws that were broken. And again, I'm all about holding the government accountable, guys. So I'm definitely not pro anything other than the republic and natural law. And I'm not one of these guys that you can pigeonhole as a MAGA or anything else. I am a free man upon the land who believes that less government means more freedom. And if you want to join me with that, you'll also agree no more free stuff to anyone from the government at taxpayer expense. No more buying votes from people with your or my paycheck. You earn it on a merit-based system, and like it was in my father's time, people collecting welfare and government benefits are looked down upon. And the only time that you even try and receive anything free from the government is when you're in dire straits with the goal to get a job and get out of the problem. And I'll also be doing some future shows about buying gold and silver and getting involved in cryptocurrencies and getting off of the Jekyll Island controlled, privately controlled Federal Reserve Bank that is working in tandem with these communist organizations like Susan Bass's Los Angeles to destroy our republic and destabilize the United States. And with that being said, make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because we never know when the thought police are going to take down this